I was watering the flowers on the porch and froze when his laughter drifted over, cold and sharp. "Of course I love her, you idiot," he said. "I love her bank account. As for her, I'll just have to tolerate her for a little while." "Hello and welcome. It means a lot to have you here. Let me know in the comments what city you're watching from. Now let's get into the story." My daughter, Imani, stood on the little pedestal in the center of the living room, bathed in the afternoon sun pouring through the bay window. She looked like a queen. The wedding dress, a cascade of ivory silk and delicate lace, clung to her frame as if it had been spun just for her. A soft, happy blush colored her cheeks, and her eyes, my late husband's eyes, shone with a light I hadn't seen in years, not since her last heartbreak. "What do you think, Mom?" she asked, her voice a happy little hum. She did a slow turn, the train of the dress whispering against the hardwood floor. I felt a familiar lump form in my throat, the kind that only comes from a love so fierce it physically hurts. "I think," I said, my voice thick, "that you are the most beautiful thing I have ever seen." It was the truth. At 33, Imani had finally found her joy. After years of self-doubt and a few bad turns in the world of romance, Andre Morrison had walked into her life like an answered prayer. He was handsome, charismatic, successful, a partner at some downtown investment firm, he'd said. He doted on her, listened to her, and made her feel cherished. He made her laugh that deep, rumbling laugh that echoed my James's. For that alone, I was ready to love him. We'd spent the whole day on wedding tasks, finalizing the floral arrangements, peonies and white roses, her favorite, tasting cake samples until we were dizzy with sugar. Now, the final dress fitting at home. The wedding was just 2 weeks away. 2 weeks until my only child, my whole world, would start her own family. "It's a little tight here," Imani said, pinching the fabric at her waist, "but I think that's just the cake talking." I chuckled and stood up, moving to help her. "Let me see." My hands, worn from 67 years of living, gently adjusted the satin. Everything had to be perfect. For her, I had poured everything I had into this child, ever since James passed away 20 years ago. My life became a single focused mission, Imani's happiness. I'd worked my fingers to the bone as a teacher, saved every penny, and built a comfortable nest for us. James had left us well off with a portfolio of investments I'd learned to manage meticulously. It wasn't extravagant wealth, but it was security, a legacy for my daughter. And Andre, it seemed, was the final piece of the puzzle. He was going to give her the life of love and partnership I had always dreamed for her. "Perfect," I said, smoothing the fabric one last time. "You're perfect." Imani beamed, her smile so wide and genuine it could have powered the whole city of Charlotte. "I'm going to go get us some ice for our tea. Don't move. I want to take a picture of you next to the dress when I'm out of it." She carefully stepped off the pedestal and shuffled toward the kitchen, her laughter echoing behind her. A moment later, Andre's car pulled into the driveway. My heart gave a happy little skip. He was always punctual, always thoughtful. He was probably bringing Imani her favorite coffee. He came in through the side door, which led into the kitchen. I stayed in the living room, hidden by the archway, wanting to let them have their moment. I heard Imani's happy squeal, the sound of a kiss. "Hey, baby," Andre's smooth baritone voice washed over the house. "Wow, you working on the seating chart?" "Just grabbing some ice," she said. "Mom and I were doing the final dress fitting. Go say hi, she's in the living room. I'll be right back out on the porch." "All right," he said. I heard the back door slide open and shut. Imani was outside. Andre, I assumed, was about to walk into the living room. I prepared a warm smile, but he didn't come. Instead, I heard the faint clicking of his phone, then his voice, low and confidential. He must have thought I was upstairs. I stood perfectly still in the shadows of the hallway connecting the two rooms. Curiosity wasn't my intention, but I was frozen in place. His voice was different now. The warmth was gone. It was flat, cold, and laced with something ugly, contempt. "No, she has no idea," he said into the phone. A pause. I heard the clink of a glass being set on the counter. "The wedding is just a business deal, a transaction. You know the plan." My blood went cold. Business deal? What was he talking about? "Listen, Marcus," he continued, his voice a venomous hiss. "Once I get control of her inheritance from the old man, I won't need the naive little fool anymore. Her mother manages the trust, a senile old bat who keeps everything locked down tight. The marriage gives me access. That's the key." The tray of sewing pins I was holding slipped from my numb fingers and clattered onto the floor. I didn't even flinch. Every muscle in my body had turned to stone. Naive little fool. Senile old bat. The words circled in my head like vultures. This couldn't be real. It was a joke. A horrible, twisted joke. But the cold conviction in his voice was no joke. "Yeah, the old lady is loaded," he went on, oblivious. "Lives like a church mouse, but she's sitting on a pile of cash. I've seen the statements he so stupidly left on the desk one time. Over $2 million, $2 million. And it all goes to Imani. Soon, it all comes to me." He chuckled. It was the ugliest sound I had ever heard. I just have to play the part for a little while longer, hold my nose and get through the ceremony. My breath caught in my chest. I felt the air leave my lungs as if I'd been punched. The beautiful sunlit room began to spin. The ivory dress in the center of it all seemed to mock me, a symbol of a dream that had just been shattered into a million pieces. I backed away slowly, my stockinged feet making no sound on the polished floor. I retreated up the stairs, one step at a time, my hand gripping the banister so hard my knuckles turned white. My heart wasn't beating, it was hammering, a wild drum of terror and rage against my ribs. By the time I reached my bedroom and shut the door, the shock was wearing off, replaced by something else, something cold and hard and heavy. It settled deep in my bones, a chilling resolve. He had called my daughter a fool. He had called me a senile old bat. He wasn't just planning to steal our money, he was planning to steal my daughter's heart, her future, and crush it into dust for profit. He saw her beautiful, trusting soul as a mere obstacle to a bank account. I sat on the edge of my bed, my hands trembling, not with fear, but with a fury so profound it felt ancient. I was a 67-year-old widow, a retired school teacher. To him, I was a frail old woman, an afterthought. He was about to find out how wrong he was. The lioness inside me, the one that had been sleeping peacefully for years, was now wide awake, and she was ready to protect her cub, whatever it took. That night, sleep was a stranger. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard his voice, that cold, clinical dissection of his greed. Naive little fool. Business deal. Hold my nose and get through the ceremony. The words were seared into my brain. Imani slept peacefully across the hall, dreaming of her perfect wedding, her perfect man. The irony was a bitter pill in my throat. Around 2 a.m, I gave up on sleep. I crept downstairs, the old house groaning around me, and sat at the kitchen table with my laptop. The faint glow of the screen was the only light, painting my face in a cold, blue hue. My war room. My mind, usually occupied with garden plans and book club selections, was now laser-focused. I was a teacher. My greatest skill was research. I started with the basics. Andre Morrison. I typed his name into the search bar. The first few results were predictable. His LinkedIn profile polished and professional. It listed him as a senior investment partner at Sterling Thorne Global. It looked impressive. Photos of him in a sharp suit, smiling at what looked like a conference. I clicked on the company website. It was slick, full of corporate jargon about synergy and leveraging assets. But something felt off. It was too generic. There were no names listed under the Our Team section, just stock photos of smiling, racially diverse professionals. No address either, just a P.O. box in downtown Charlotte. My fingers flew across the keyboard. I searched for business registrations for Sterling Thorn Global in North Carolina. Nothing. I searched federal records. Nothing. The company didn't exist. It was a ghost. A beautifully designed lie on the internet. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was real. This wasn't a misunderstanding. I dug deeper, my search terms becoming more specific. I went through his social media pages, the ones he'd shared with Imani. They were carefully curated, pictures of them hiking at fancy dinners, with friends who all looked equally handsome and successful. But as I scrolled back, years back, before he met Imani, the digital breadcrumbs started to form a different trail. I found a tagged photo from 5 years ago. He was on a boat, his arm around a stunning woman with fiery red hair. The caption read, "Happy anniversary to my amazing fiancé Andre. Can't wait to be Mrs. Jensen." Jensen, not Morrison. A cold dread washed over me. I clicked on the woman's profile. It was public. Her name was Chloe. I scrolled through her photos, a voyeur of a life I wasn't supposed to see, more pictures of them together looking blissfully happy. Then, about 4 years ago, the post stopped. The next one was a cryptic quote about betrayal, then another about starting over. There was no wedding. My hands were shaking now. I searched for Andre Jensen. The results were sparse at first, but then I found it. A small news article from a local paper in Raleigh. Local man accused of investment fraud. The picture was grainy, but it was him, Andre Jensen. The article described how he'd swindled several elderly people out of their retirement savings with a phantom real estate scheme. The charges were eventually dropped due to a lack of concrete evidence, a key witness who recanted their testimony. He'd walked free. He changed his name. He moved to a new city, and he found a new target, my daughter. I felt sick to my stomach. This wasn't just a gold digger. This was a professional predator. He had done this before. He knew how to cover his tracks, how to manipulate people, how to walk away clean. I knew in that moment that my own amateur digging wouldn't be enough. I couldn't confront him. He would lie, twist the story, and turn Imani against me. He would paint me as a meddling, paranoid old woman. He was good at this. It was his trade. I needed proof. Hard, undeniable proof that Imani couldn't ignore. And I needed someone who knew how to fight a monster like him. My late husband, James, always used to say, "When you're in over your head, Darlene, you don't pretend you can swim. You call for a lifeguard." The name came to me instantly. Jackson Hayes, a private investigator. My husband's estate lawyer had recommended him years ago when we had a small issue with a contractor. James had met him once and been impressed. A straight shooter, he'd called him. Sees the world in black and white. Right now, I needed black and white. I found his number online, Hayes Investigations. I stared at the phone, my thumb hovering over the call button. It was 3:30 in the morning, but my problem wasn't going to wait for business hours. The wedding was in 13 days. The clock was ticking. I pressed the button. It rang 4 times. I was about to hang up when a groggy, deep voice answered. "Hayes." "Mr. Hayes," I said, my own voice sounding surprisingly steady. "My name is Darlene Washington. I apologize for the hour, but I need your help. It's about my daughter's fiancé." There was a pause on the line. I could hear him shifting, the rustle of sheets. "Go on," he said, his voice now more alert. I took a deep breath and told him everything. 3 days later, I was sitting in a discreet booth at the back of a small diner, a place that smelled of old coffee and bacon. Jackson Hayes sat across from me. He was about 50, with tired eyes that had seen too much and a calm, methodical demeanor that immediately put me at ease. He didn't look like the investigators on television. He looked like a history teacher who'd lost his passion for the job. He slid a plain manila envelope across the table. "Your instincts were good, Mrs. Washington." I opened it. My hands were steady. The fury had burned away the shakes. Inside were photographs and typed pages. The first picture was of Andre, or whatever his name was, kissing another woman. a beautiful, sharp-looking black woman with intelligent eyes. They were standing on the porch of a small, tidy bungalow. It looked like they lived there. The kiss wasn't a peck. It was intimate, familiar. "His real name is Andre Jensen," Hayes said, his voice a low monotone. "He has a record. 2 prior arrests for fraud, 1 for embezzlement. Charges were dropped each time. He's slick. He knows how to operate in the gray areas." He tapped the photo of the woman. "Her name is Aaliyah Turner. She's a registered nurse at Charlotte General. They've been living together for 2 years. As far as she knows, he's a freelance financial consultant. She pays most of the bills. He told her he was waiting for a big commission to come through." I felt a pang of sympathy for this unknown woman, another victim in his web. "The company, Sterling Thorne, is a shell," Hayes continued, confirming my late-night discovery. "The website was built from a template. The phone number goes to a burner phone. He uses it to impress his marks." Marks. That's what my daughter was to him. A mark. "He has debts," Hayes said, sliding another paper toward me. It was a list of credit card balances and personal loans. Significant ones. Close to $100,000. He's been making minimum payments just enough to stay afloat. He's looking for a big score, Mrs. Washington. A payday that will set him up for good." He paused, letting the weight of the words settle. "Your daughter is his payday." I looked at the picture of Andre and Aaliyah again. The quiet domesticity of it. The betrayal was layered, a complex tapestry of lies. He was not just deceiving my daughter. He was deceiving this other woman who loved and supported him. "What about his family?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Hayes shook his head. "Doesn't exist. The tear-jerking story he told your daughter about his parents dying in a car crash when he was in college, a complete fabrication. He grew up in the foster system in Atlanta, aged out at 18 and has been grifting ever since." I closed the envelope. I had seen enough. The quiet, methodical report from this calm man was more damning than any angry accusation. It was a blueprint of Andre's soullessness. "What do we do?" I asked. Hayes leaned back in the booth. "There are 2 ways this goes. We can go to the police. With his record, they might open an investigation, but he hasn't technically committed a crime against you or your daughter yet. It would be his word against yours. He'd charm his way out of it and disappear before they could build a case." "And the second way?" His tired eyes met mine. "We expose him. Publicly, humiliatingly, in a way that leaves him with no wiggle room, no escape hatch. We make sure he can never show his face in this town again." A cold smile touched my lips for the first time in days. "Let's go with the second way, Mr. Hayes." A week felt like a lifetime when I had to live a lie. The wedding was now just 9 days away. 9 days of smiling, of discussing floral centerpieces and seating charts, all while a viper was coiling himself around my family's heart. My conversations with Imani were a minefield. Every happy sigh she made, every excited mention of our future, sent a shard of ice through my veins. I had Hayes's envelope locked in my bedside table, a bomb waiting to be detonated. But the timing had to be perfect. One wrong move, one flicker of suspicion in my eyes, and Andre would spook. He'd vanish, maybe even take Imani with him, and I would lose my chance. So I played the part of the doting mother-in-law. I forced a smile when he walked in the door. I nodded along to his stories about the office. But something in me had irrevocably shifted, and a predator like Andre could sense it. He started watching me, the way a snake watches a mouse, wondering if it knows about the trap. He found his moment on a Tuesday evening. Imani had gone out for a last-minute spa appointment with her maid of honor. Andre had let himself in with the key she'd given him, saying he needed to pick up a suit he'd left behind. I was in the kitchen, trimming the dead leaves from my African violets on the windowsill. "You've been quiet lately, Darlene," he said. His voice, smooth as polished stone, came from directly behind me. I hadn't even heard him enter the room. I didn't turn around. I snipped off a brown leaf. "Just a lot on my mind. This wedding is a big event." "Is that all it is?" He walked around the kitchen island, leaning against the counter, directly in my line of sight. He wasn't smiling. His usual mask of easy charm was gone. In its place was a look of cold, calculating assessment. "You look at me differently." I finally met his gaze. My heart was a cold, steady drum against my ribs. "I don't know what you mean." "Don't you?" he said, his voice dropping lower. "The first time we met, you were all smiles, warm, welcoming. Now, there's ice in your eyes. I'm not a fool. Something's changed. Did I do something to offend you?" The audacity of it, to stand in my kitchen and feign innocence, made my blood boil. But I kept my face a placid mask. "You're imagining things, Andre. I'm just tired." He took a step closer. The air crackled with a tension so thick I could taste it. "I don't think I am," he hissed, the pretense of civility vanishing completely. "I think you've been snooping. I think you've been asking questions." This was it. The first move in the chess game. My mind raced. Hayes had warned me this would happen. "He'll test you," he'd said. "He'll try to provoke you. Don't take the bait." I set down my shears and turned to face him fully, wiping my hands on my apron. "My daughter is the most important thing in the world to me. Of course I'm protective. Any mother would be." He stared at me for a long moment, his eyes searching mine for a crack, a weakness. I gave him nothing, just the flat, unblinking gaze of a 67-year-old woman who was done being underestimated. Then his face changed. A slow, cruel smile spread across his lips. It was the most terrifying thing I had ever seen. He had found what he thought was my weakness. He had found a different line of attack. "Protective? Yes," he said softly, as if speaking to a child. "It's a shame you haven't been as honest with her as you expect me to be." I froze. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about your health, Darlene." The words hit me like a physical blow. I felt the blood drain from my face, my secret, my closely guarded, terrifying secret. "I was looking for some aspirin in your bathroom cabinet the other day," he lied smoothly. "Couldn't help but notice the prescription bottles in the back. Digoxin, lisinopril, powerful stuff for the heart." He tilted his head, his eyes glinting with malicious triumph. "Congestive heart failure. That's a heavy burden to carry alone, and an even heavier one to hide from the daughter who adores you." I couldn't breathe. He had gone through my things. He had invaded the most private corner of my life and was now holding it like a knife to my throat. I had been diagnosed 6 months ago. The prognosis was manageable, my doctor said, as long as I avoided severe stress. I hadn't told Imani because I didn't want to cast a shadow over the happiest time of her life. I was going to tell her after the wedding, after the honeymoon, when she was settled and happy. "You're a monster," I whispered, the words rasping in my dry throat. His smile widened. "I'm a pragmatist," he corrected me, "and I'm going to marry your daughter in 9 days. You are going to smile, you are going to cry happy tears, and you are going to give her away with your blessing. You will not say a single word against me, because if you do, I can't imagine the shock it would cause poor, fragile Imani, finding out her mother is dying and lied to her face for months." He was twisting it, making it sound like a death sentence. "The stress alone could be very bad for your condition, couldn't it, Darlene?" he added, his voice a silky threat. "A big, ugly scene. It could be the last thing you ever do, and your daughter would have to live with that. She'd have to live with knowing her wedding day killed her mother. Do you really want that to be your legacy?" He had me. He had taken my deepest fear, burdening my child, and weaponized it. He thought he had won. He thought he had silenced me forever. As he stood there, gloating in my sun-drenched kitchen, he had no idea that he hadn't just threatened me. He had signed his own death warrant. He had given me one more reason to burn his world to the ground. The next morning, the atmosphere at the breakfast table was thick with poison. I had barely slept, Andre's threats replaying in my mind. Imani, oblivious, hummed as she poured orange juice, her engagement ring catching the morning light. Andre sat opposite me, the picture of the concerned fiancé. The mask was back on, but now I could see the evil lurking behind the eye holes. "You're looking a little pale this morning, Darlene," he said, his voice dripping with false concern. He placed his hand over Imani's. "I'm worried about your mom, baby. I think all this wedding stress is getting to be too much for her." Imani's face clouded with worry. She looked at me, her brow furrowed. "Mom, are you feeling okay? You've been so quiet." "I'm fine, sweetheart," I said, forcing a weak smile. The coffee tasted like dirt in my mouth. "Just a little tired." "See?" Andre said, squeezing Imani's hand. "We need to take care of her. After we're married, I think we should look into getting her some help. This big house is a lot for her to manage on her own." I stared at him, my knuckles white around my coffee mug. He was already laying the groundwork. He was planting the seeds of my incompetence, my frailty. Imani looked torn. "What do you mean, help? Like a cleaner?" "I was thinking something more," Andre said, his tone gentle, reasonable. "Maybe we could handle her finances for her, take that burden off her shoulders so she can just relax and focus on her health. We wouldn't want her to be worrying about investments and taxes at her age." He looked directly at me, a silent challenge in his eyes. "Your money, your house. I'm coming for it all, and you will sit there and let me. And maybe," he continued, turning his charming smile back to Imani, "we could even find her a lovely retirement community, a place with on-site nurses and prepared meals, so we'd know she was safe and sound." The room fell silent. Even Imani seemed taken aback. A retirement home? I was only 67. I still volunteered at the library twice a week. I tended my own garden. But I saw the flicker of doubt he had placed in her mind. She looked at me, at my pale face and trembling hands, a symptom of the medication that I usually kept hidden, and for the first time, she saw not her strong, capable mother, but a fragile old woman, just as he intended. "Andre, I don't think—" she started, but he cut her off. "We don't have to decide now, of course," he said smoothly. "It's just something to think about. We love your mom. We just want what's best for her." He took a sip of his coffee, his eyes locking with mine over the rim of the cup. It was a declaration of war. He wasn't just going to take my money. He was going to take my daughter, my home, my dignity. He was going to erase me from my own life, and he was going to make my daughter believe it was an act of love. I had less than 9 days to save us both. The clock wasn't just ticking. It was screaming. The moment Andre's car pulled out of the driveway, leaving me in the echoing silence of my home, the fragile dam holding back my terror and rage finally broke. But I did not have time for hysterics. Hysteria was a luxury. What I had was a deadline. The rehearsal dinner was tonight. It was the only stage big enough, public enough, to ensure he couldn't slither away. My hands, still trembling from the confrontation, reached for the phone. I dialed Jackson Hayes. He answered on the second ring, his voice calm and professional, a lighthouse in my storm. "He knows," I said, my voice low and urgent. There was no need for pleasantries. "He found my medication. He threatened to tell Imani about my heart condition if I expose him. He's blackmailing me." There was a short pause on the other end. "Are you all right, Mrs. Washington?" "I'm fine," I lied. Fine was a distant memory. "But this changes the timeline. We have to do this tonight, at the rehearsal dinner." "That's a high-pressure environment," Hayes said, a note of caution in his voice. The stress of letting him marry my daughter will kill me faster than any confrontation," I snapped, my voice harder than I intended. "I need you to do something for me, Mr. Hayes. I need to speak with Aaliyah Turner, now." That could be difficult. She might not be receptive. "I don't care if it's difficult," I said, pacing the length of my kitchen. He is using my life to threaten me. He is using my daughter's love as a weapon. This woman, Aaliyah, she's the only other person who knows the man behind the mask. He's betraying her too. I need to talk to her, please." I heard him sigh, a sound of weary acceptance. "I'll get you her cell phone number, but let me give you a piece of advice. Don't waste time explaining. Hit her with one piece of hard evidence she can't deny. You'll have about 10 seconds to convince her you're not a crank caller." A minute later, a text message chimed. It contained a single phone number. I took a deep breath, my finger hovering over the screen. This call was everything. If she hung up, if she didn't believe me, my plan would crumble. I pressed the number. A crisp, intelligent voice answered. Aaliyah Turner speaking. "Ms. Turner," I began, my own voice sounding foreign and strained. "My name is Darlene Washington. You don't know me, but we have a man in common. His name is Andre Jensen." Silence. For a terrifying second, I thought she had hung up. Then, her voice, sharp and suspicious. "Who is this? I don't know anyone by that name." "Yes, you do," I said, pushing past the lie. "He calls himself Andre Morrison now. He lives with you. He's been telling you he's waiting on a big commission." "This is insane. I'm hanging up." "Don't," I said, my voice cracking with desperation. "He is marrying my daughter. The wedding is in 8 days. The rehearsal dinner is tonight." "You're crazy," she said, but there was a new, faint tremor of uncertainty in her voice. The word marrying had hit its mark. "I'm going to send you a photo," I said quickly, remembering Hayes's advice. "Right now, to this number. Look at it. And then you tell me if I'm crazy." I hung up before she could reply. My fingers fumbled as I found the photo of Imani's wedding invitation on my phone. The elegant script, their names entwined, Imani Washington and Andre Morrison. I attached it to a new message and sent it. I waited. 1 minute. 2. Each second stretched into an eternity. My heart was pounding, a painful, irregular rhythm in my chest. I thought about my diagnosis, avoid severe stress. I almost laughed. Then my phone rang. It was her. I answered, my throat tight. "Where?" she asked. Her voice was a choked whisper. All the crisp professionalism was gone. There was only the raw sound of betrayal. "The Oak Room at the Grand Savoy Hotel," I said gently. 8 o'clock tonight. He told my daughter he was having dinner with a client. A choked sob came through the phone. "That liar! He told me he was going to a medical fundraising gala. I helped him pick out his tie." "Aaliyah," I said, my voice firm now, pulling her out of the shock. "I am so sorry to be the one to tell you this, but he is a predator. He is trying to steal my family's entire life savings. He's done this before. He'll do it again. We're the only ones who can stop him." "What? What do you want me to do?" she whispered. "I want you to come to that dinner," I said. "I have a plan. Mr. Hayes, the investigator who helped me find you, will meet you nearby and come in with you. All you have to do is be there. All you have to do is be the truth." There was another long pause. I could hear her breathing, trying to process a reality that had just been torn apart. "Okay," she finally said, her voice filled with a new cold resolve. "I'll be there." That evening, I put on a deep blue silk dress, the one James always said matched my eyes. I put on pearls. I did my makeup with a steady hand, creating a mask of calm serenity. On the outside, I was the proud mother of the bride. Inside, I was a soldier preparing for battle. Imani was radiant in a simple white dress, her eyes sparkling. Andre, in a tailored dark suit, the one Aaliyah had probably helped him choose, was the very picture of a handsome, loving fiancé. He shot me a look as we prepared to leave, a smirk full of smug victory. He thought he had me in a cage. He had no idea I was the one who had just locked the door. The private dining room at the Grand Savoy was beautiful. Low lighting, tables draped in white linen, a single perfect peony at every place setting. About 30 of their closest friends and family were there. A happy, laughing crowd, completely oblivious. The air was thick with love and celebration. To me, it felt like a funeral. I played my part. I hugged relatives. I accepted congratulations. I smiled until my face ached. Andre stayed close to Imani, his hand possessively on the small of her back. Every few minutes, his eyes would find mine across the room, a silent, gloating reminder of his threat. "Smile, Darlene. Smile for the cameras, or I'll destroy your daughter's world." I smiled back, a placid, empty expression that I hoped he'd mistake for surrender. After the appetizers, Imani's father's best friend, Uncle Ray, stood up to make a toast. He told a funny story about James and me when we were young. He talked about how proud James would have been of his daughter. Tears welled in my eyes, and for a moment they were real. I missed my husband so much it was a physical ache. He would have seen through Andre in a second. Then Ray raised his glass. "To Imani and Andre." "To Imani and Andre," the room echoed. As everyone sat down, Andre caught my eye again and gave a slight, almost imperceptible nod towards the head of the table. It was my turn. The main event, the mother of the bride's speech. This was the moment he was waiting for, the moment of my public capitulation. I took a slow, deliberate breath, my fingers finding the small remote control in my clutch. My heart began to pound that dangerous rhythm again. I pushed the fear down. "This is for Imani." I stood up, my wine glass in my hand. The room fell silent. Everyone turned to me, their faces smiling, expectant. I saw my daughter's face so full of love and hope. I saw Andre's, a mask of charming anticipation, but his eyes were like chips of ice. He was savoring his victory. "Thank you all for being here," I began, my voice clear and steady. It didn't even tremble. "To see my daughter, my beautiful Imani, this happy. It's the only thing I've ever wanted in my life." I looked straight at her, pouring all my love into that one gaze. "Her father would be so, so proud of the woman you've become, my love." Imani's eyes filled with tears. She blew me a small kiss. I turned my head slightly, my gaze falling on Andre. And I, of course, wanted a man who would cherish her, a man who would be worthy of her, a man who would be honest. I let the word honest hang in the air for a beat too long. A flicker of annoyance crossed Andre's face. "Andre has shown us all such a perfect image," I continued, my voice smooth as silk. "He's a man of many talents. So I thought, as my gift to you both tonight, I would share a little more about the man my daughter is marrying. I put together a little presentation of some of his past accomplishments." Before anyone could react, I raised the remote and pressed the button. Behind me, a large white screen I'd asked the hotel to set up for a surprise memory slideshow descended from the ceiling. The projector I'd given the event manager, loaded with a file from Hayes, hummed to life. Andre's face went rigid. His smile vanished. "Darlene, what is this?" Imani looked confused, a little crease of worry between her brows. "Mom, what are you doing?" "Just sharing some memories, sweetheart," I said. The first image flashed onto the screen. It wasn't a baby picture. It was a grainy black and white police mugshot. A younger Andre Jensen, stared out with dead eyes, a booking placard hanging around his neck. A collective gasp swept through the room. Imani made a small, wounded sound, like a puppy that had been kicked. "Mom, what is that?" I ignored her plea. My eyes were locked on Andre. The color had drained from his face. "This," I announced to the silent, horrified room, "is Andre Jensen, a resident of Raleigh, North Carolina, arrested in 2018 for investment fraud." Click. The remote in my hand felt like a weapon. The next slide was a screenshot of the slick Sterling Thorne global website. This is the prestigious firm where he is a senior partner. Funny thing is, according to state and federal records, this company doesn't exist. "Darlene, that's enough," Andre snapped, starting to rise from his chair. His voice was a low growl. "She's not well. She's confused." Click. The next slide was a detailed summary of his debts, a staggering figure close to $100,000. He came to my daughter not with a full heart, I said, my voice ringing with cold fury, but with empty pockets and a predatory plan. Imani was staring at the screen, her face a mask of utter disbelief and horror. Tears were streaming down her cheeks. "Andre, is this true?" "No, baby, of course not," he said, his voice desperate now, the charm cracking. "Your mother is having some kind of breakdown. She's been sick. She's not thinking clearly." He looked at me, his eyes burning with pure hatred. He was trying to play his final card, my illness. But it was too late. I had a final card of my own. "He told you he was an orphan," I said, my voice softening as I looked at my devastated daughter. "He told you he was all alone in the world. It's a sad story, but it isn't true." Click. The final picture filled the screen. It was the photo of Andre on the porch of the tidy bungalow, his lips pressed against Aaliyah Turner's in a deep, familiar kiss. The silence in the room was absolute, broken only by Imani's sharp, shattered gasp. "He's not alone," I said, my voice steady and clear. "He lives with his girlfriend of 2 years, a wonderful, hard-working woman who has been supporting him financially while he hunts for his next victim." As the guests stared, frozen in shock at the image on the screen, the large oak doors to the dining room swung open. "In fact," I said, turning towards the entrance, "she's here tonight." Aaliyah Turner walked in. She was beautiful, poised, her face a mask of sorrow and steel. And right behind her was Jackson Hayes. Every head in the room swiveled toward the door. The silence was a physical thing, heavy and suffocating. Aaliyah stood there, her chin high, her eyes locked on Andre. She was the living, breathing proof of his betrayal, more damning than any picture on a screen. Beside her, Jackson Hayes looked impassive, a quiet observer holding a thin file. Andre looked from her to the screen to me. For a second, he just stood there, a cornered animal, his mind racing for an escape route where there was none. The charm, the lies, the entire carefully constructed persona, it all evaporated in that one silent moment. All that was left was the raw, ugly truth of him. "Aaliyah?" he stammered, his voice a pathetic squeak. "What are you doing here?" She took a step into the room. "You told me it was a fundraiser, Andre, or should I say Andre Jensen?" Her voice was quiet, but it cut through the room like a shard of glass. Imani made a sound, a low, guttural moan of pain. She finally tore her eyes away from the screen and looked at the man she was supposed to marry. "Who is she?" she whispered. Andre's head snapped towards her, his face a mask of panic. "Baby, it's not what it looks like. This is a misunderstanding. She's a crazy ex-girlfriend. Your mother found her. She's trying to sabotage us." That was his mistake. He tried one lie too many. Aaliyah let out a short, bitter laugh. "An ex-girlfriend? I paid our rent on the 1st of the month, Andre. I picked up your dry cleaning yesterday. We've been living together for 2 years and 7 months. She looked past him, her gaze finding my daughter's. Her eyes were filled not with anger, but with a profound, shared sorrow. "I'm so sorry. He was fooling me too." Jackson Hayes stepped forward, calm and methodical. "Mr. Jensen," he said, his voice carrying an authority that silenced all other whispers. "I'm a private investigator. I have here a complete file on your activities, including sworn affidavits from 3 other women in Raleigh you defrauded under similar circumstances. The Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department is very interested in reading it." That was it, the final nail in the coffin. Andre finally broke, his face contorted into a snarl of pure, undiluted rage. It was terrifying to see the monster fully revealed. "You!" he screamed, pointing a shaking finger at me. All his venom, all his frustration, was now directed at the true architect of his downfall. "You old bitch! You did this!" He lunged towards me. For a heart-stopping second, I thought he was going to strike me. but Uncle Ray and Imani's cousin Michael were on their feet in an instant, grabbing his arms. He struggled against them, his expensive suit twisting. "I'll ruin you," he shrieked, his voice cracking. "You think you've won? You want to talk about secrets? Let's talk about yours. Tell her. Tell your precious daughter how you've been lying to her for months. Tell her you're a sick, dying old woman who was too pathetic to tell her the truth." The room fell silent again, but this time it was a confused, shocked silence. Imani's head snapped up, her tear-streaked face turning from Andre's snarling one to mine. Her eyes were wide with a new, terrifying question. "Mom?" she whispered. "What is he talking about?" The men were dragging a screaming, cursing Andre out of the room. The party was over. The lives in that room would never be the same. But all I could see was my daughter's face, her heart already shattered into a million pieces, now facing one more blow. I walked over to her, my legs feeling like lead. I reached out and took her hands in mine. They were ice cold. "Sweetheart," I said, my voice finally breaking, "we need to go home. I'll tell you everything." There, in the ruins of her wedding rehearsal, surrounded by the shocked faces of our friends and family, she looked at me, and in her eyes I saw not accusation, but a deep, dawning understanding. She saw the lies he had told, and she saw the truth of the fierce, desperate love that had forced me to do what I did. She squeezed my hands, her grip surprisingly strong, and we held on to each other, two women in the eye of a hurricane, the only solid ground in a world that had just been washed away. Months later, the house was quiet. The stacks of wedding gifts were gone, returned with polite, brief notes. The ivory dress was sealed in a box in the attic, a ghost of a life that never was. For the first few weeks, the silence in the house was heavy, broken only by the sound of Imani's weeping, but slowly, like the first shoots of grass, after a fire, healing began. Imani started seeing a therapist, a kind woman who helped her unpack the layers of manipulation and gaslighting she had endured. She learned to separate Andre's poison from her own self-worth. It was a slow, painful process, but with every session, I saw a little more of my daughter coming back to me. The light returned to her eyes, and she was there for me. After the shock of my diagnosis wore off, it became our new normal. She drove me to my doctor's appointments. She learned to cook heart-healthy meals. She would sit with me on the porch in the evenings, not talking, just being present, a warm, comforting weight beside me. My illness was no longer a secret, a weapon he could use against us. It was just a fact of our lives, another battle we were fighting together. My daughter, the one I had tried so hard to protect, was now protecting me. Our roles had shifted, and in that shift, our bond became unbreakable. 2 years later, I stood in my garden. It was a warm autumn afternoon, the leaves on the maple trees turning a brilliant shade of gold. I felt strong. My checkups were good. My heart was stable. Justice had been served. Aaliyah, with Hayes' help, had connected with the other women Andre had scammed. Their combined testimony was overwhelming. Andre Jensen was sentenced to 7 to 10 years in state prison for fraud and grand larceny. He was no longer our problem. He was just a ghost. I heard the back door slide open. Imani came out carrying 2 glasses of iced tea. She was smiling, that deep, genuine smile I had missed so much. Behind her stood Darnell, a kind, gentle man with a quiet confidence and honest eyes. He was an architect, a man who built things rather than tearing them down. He looked at my daughter as if she were the sun. They had met a year ago at a community fundraiser for the library. Their love wasn't a whirlwind. It was a slow, steady construction, built on a foundation of trust and respect. "The caterer just confirmed for Saturday," Imani said, handing me a glass. She leaned down and kissed my cheek. Her wedding was in 3 days. This time there would be no grand hotel, no 100-person guest list, just 20 of our closest family and friends, right here in my garden. "Everything is ready," I said, looking at her. She was more beautiful now than she had been in that ivory gown. She was whole. She was happy, truly happy. Darnell put his arm around her and she leaned her head on his shoulder. They fit. It was as simple as that. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the lawn, I thought about the long, dark road we had walked to get to this peaceful evening. I had learned that a mother's love wasn't just about gentle hands and lullabies. Sometimes it was about baring your teeth. Sometimes it was about walking into the fire and burning down the monster who threatened your child. I had almost lost everything. But looking at my daughter, safe and loved, I knew I had won the only war that ever mattered. The future was here, bright and clear, reflected in her shining eyes, and it was beautiful. Thanks for listening. If any part of this story resonated with you or reminded you of your own experiences, share your thoughts below. I value every comment, and if you'd like to join me for more stories, hit like and subscribe. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next one.